Today I'm joined by Amber Kendrick, owner of Pete's Auto Parts in Michigan. Amber is a second-generation recycler, an active industry volunteer, and one of the sharpest operational minds in the automotive recycling industry. In this conversation, we talk about leadership, growth, adapting to change, building a strong team, and why some recyclers are thriving while others are struggling. Here's my conversation with Amber. This episode is brought to you by ARTI, Auto Recycler Intelligence. You're already spending money on Google Ads, your website, and marketing to make the phone ring. But what happens when those calls go unanswered? Too often, they go straight to your competitor. ARTI Sales Assistant answers every call 24/7. It speaks auto recycling, it captures the lead, and hands your team qualified opportunities ready to close. Across the ARI network, the system has handled more than 277,000 calls, closed over 5,000 sales, and generated more than $2 million in transactions, including one recycler who turned just over $1,000 investment into more than $18,000 in weekend sales. What are you missing while you're asleep? To learn more, contact Kirk Monger at kirk@ariintel.com. Amber?
Yeah,
Thank
welcome
you so much.
to Pete's Auto Parts.
Thanks. And so I don't all the time travel to location to do this, but I think it'd be fun to tell people why I'm here.
Yeah, so at the last ARA conference, there was a charity auction for the scholarship, and I was the high bidder on a very special prize, and it's for Vince to come make me and 3 guests of my choosing.
That's right.
Dinner, and he's gonna make it in my kitchen, and he's gonna clean up afterwards, so I don't even have to do the dishes.
Yeah, no, the deal was I shop, I fly to where you are, I shop, we curate the menu, and then I shop, and then I cook, and then I serve, and then I clean, and then I leave.
Yes.
And that's the deal.
I love it.
And so
I'm excited. And I really threw a curveball at you this time because my cousin is coming. My guests are my husband, Andy, my shipping manager, Jim, and then my cousin, Megan. And Megan is a vegan. And so I thought it would be a fun challenge for you to prepare a gourmet vegan dish because I think that's a little outside of your wheelhouse.
That is completely outside of that is the food that my food eats. So I was scratching my head for a while, and then I took it as a challenge, and so I think we've curated a really good menu. I actually thought about doing this. So the dinner that we're talking about is going to take place tomorrow evening, and then I fly out the next day. And I almost suggested we do this the day after.
Oh yeah, so we'd have the post.
So we'd have so much to talk about, right? So, but here I am. I'm trying to be efficient, and then I want to get home. So
of course, yeah.
But yeah, we've got a good menu. We're gonna do what do we got? We're doing
stuffed mushrooms.
Stuffed mushrooms so that's a vegan dish that I'm gonna prepare, and then I found a roasted carrot and ginger soup that looks good.
Sounds amazing.
That's vegan, and then I'm doing two different salads. I'm doing a Caesar salad, so then I'm going to do a garden salad with like an agave lime dressing. And then the main course is going to be, I'm making a lobster ravioli. And then I'm doing a cauliflower steak on a bed of hummus with chili oil. And then I don't have a dessert, but you told me that was going to be...
Yeah, none of us are really big dessert people. Jim isn't into dessert, and I'm not really a dessert person. Yeah. So I think we're going to have plenty of food without going into dessert.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited. Awesome. I'm up for the challenge. I was excited to present that as an auction item, and I'm hoping that we're going to take some pictures, and we're going to... I'm going to try to auction this item off again this year in Atlanta.
I considered getting you like a custom apron, of some kind, and I didn't follow through. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I
actually have a monogram chef coat that my kids got me. So we had a friend of the family who was a seamstress, and they worked with her, and they got me that for Christmas.
Nice.
Probably 10 years ago.
And you packed it.
Of course I packed
Excellent.
it. It's kind of a novelty when you have a chef coat. Like it cracks people up when I show up in the kitchen. We've got guests over and I'm wearing a chef coat. But I quickly learned how functional and how utilitarian it is. You're wearing you're wearing a rag. You're wearing something you can wipe your hands on. You're wearing something that you can, it's just very functional. Got a little pocket for whatever I need. So anyway,
I kind of wish I hadn't known, so that when I came home from work tomorrow and you were in my kitchen, you would have just like been in there in your chef's coat. Yeah. But that's all right.
Yeah, they made me a hat too, the chef's hat, which I put on once for the Christmas picture that year, and it's in my closet and I've never worn it.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah. But yeah, so that's why I'm here. I'm excited to be here. We're less than a mile from where you dismantle, right?
Yeah.
So this is your office.
Yeah, I have an office that's across the street around the corner from the main location. We ran out of room at the main location and we moved our engine and transmission warehouse to this campus and then turned the previous engine and transmission warehouse into a shipping department.
Tell everybody where in the country we are.
We're in Jenison, Michigan.
Right.
And our P.O. box is in Hudsonville, Michigan. So there's always a little bit of confusion, like is Pete's in Hudsonville or is it in Georgetown Township or Jenison? Because you could really say it's in any of them. In fact, we have parcels that are on the Hudsonville side of things and parcels that are on the Jenison or Georgetown Township side. So we just, we don't care whether you think we're from Hudsonville or Jenison. It's all the same to us. But yeah, we're in beautiful, sunny, springy Michigan. And it's
I flew into
wonderful.
Grand Rapids, which is not far. It's about 20-minute ride, 30-minute ride maybe. And you grew up here.
Yeah, and it just happens to be the last day of the month today. And we just had our second biggest month ever. And we had to edge out last month for that number 2 spot. Number 1 was taken, it was like quite a bit higher, and it was in October of last year. We had like a monster month. So we haven't gotten back to that number 1 slot, but 2 months in a row now we've been at number 2, and we just edged it out, and it's always so fun to break a record.
That's amazing. Congratulations to you and the team. Yeah. I know everybody works hard to do that.
It's definitely them, not me that's driving that, but it feels really good.
Good. Yeah. So this is interesting because I've spoken with a few other recyclers. Obviously, I spend a lot of time talking to recyclers.
Yeah.
And I've heard more than a couple recyclers say that these previous months have been terrible.
Yeah.
So what's Pete's doing?
I think that there's always going to be like recyclers who are thriving and recyclers who are struggling. And I think like there's been a lot of talk about market compression or margin compression.
Margin compression, yeah. Go ahead.
We're going to have our first blooper reel here.
That's all right. Get a drink.
Well, that was the problem. I took a drink and then I choked on it.
That's all right. I'll take advantage.
So there's been a lot of talk about margin compression, and there's been plenty of people struggling, and there's people who are struggling to pay us on time. And one thing that we've done is we've just totally cut off any accounts that won't pay us net 30. There's a lot of large companies in the industry now who are stretching out terms that are trying to pay at 45 days, at 50 days. That just kills our cash flow, kills our profitability, and they're generally buying the parts that are like the hot parts we bought the cars for
that you would have sold anyway.
Yeah, and so as it turns out, we are. As we've closed all these charge accounts with some of our biggest customers, our sales just keep going up, and then those customers are actually paying us on time.
So your secret to flourishing in a few months, where a lot of people have been telling me that they are floundering, is you fired people. You fired customers. You fired customers. And so you weren't selling these high demand items to people who weren't going to pay you on time, but you're still selling those high demand items.
It seems like the same parts are flying out the door. They're just going to the customers that actually pay us on time, which is really great.
That is great.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, is your business, what's the mix? Retail, collision,
Yeah, we do a little bit of it all, but we are very heavy on the Recycler-to-Reycler sales. Okay. And I'm sure a lot of the members of the audience of this podcast will have received badgering emails from me, begging them to raise us up on our partner list, because we do a lot of our sales are yard to yard. So almost 50% of our sales go out the door on our PRP truck to yards all over the country. And we love that, the steadiness of that, and when things are a little slow in Michigan, there was a hailstorm in Texas, and then all the sheet metal's flying out the door on the PRP truck, So then we do, we absolutely do retail sales. We've been growing that. We redid our website a couple of years ago, and I've really put a lot more time and effort into the marketing and advertising side. We always let the parts sell themselves, right? We inventory the parts and let them market themselves for many years. And just in the last 18 months have I started doing any kind of marketing or advertising. It's been really successful, and we've driven our retail sales up from less than 9% to over 15%.
That's amazing. That's
well,
almost
the sales
double.
are going up too,
Yeah.
So that's been really great. Now it does come with headaches.
Sure.
I've always said I'd rather have
You sell
10
50 parts to one other recycler in a month or 2 months versus 50 parts to 50 individuals.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely comes with some, some challenges. Some people, reading comprehension is a dying
Reading
art
at all.
these days.
Yeah.
So it does
I'm
seem
guilty
like,
of that,
there's times when it's a struggle to get that $50 sale, whereas the $5,000 sale just flies right out the door, and we're like, what are we doing here? But overall, it's been really good for us.
So can you share, what have you done to grow, to almost double your retail sales? And you said a lot of that, you were saying that had to do with just your marketing. So how do you market to your local community to drive sales?
Yeah, right now we're just mostly doing Google. I've tried some others. I've tried Bing and Yelp and Facebook and a lot of them, but the only one that has really driven the numbers for me has been the Google. I guess the other thing is Facebook Marketplace is huge for us. We keep getting shut out of it because you're technically not supposed to advertise. Businesses are not supposed to put any products on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. I'm very much the type of person who likes to follow the rules. I like to know the rules. I like to follow the rules. I like to win within the rules. Yeah. And this is one that I've bent for a long time, because what we find is when we post a whole vehicle on Facebook Marketplace with a list of all the parts, we can't believe how many leads that generates. So many people are finding us there and then messaging us, and we're messaging them back, and we were selling a ton of parts that way. Getting, I think it was an average of 12 leads a day from Facebook. Now, I don't know how many of those actually turned into sales, but I mean, even if it's one, one sale a day, it was a very low investment, in posting a vehicle on Facebook Marketplace.
You're not boosting them; you're just posting.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we got shut down again, and really the only good way to post on Facebook Marketplace is as an individual. So that means either I have to do it, or I have to give my Facebook info to some other person, and I don't know. It's tough, It's tough.
I see that. So I see that a lot when I'm scrolling through Marketplace looking at cars, right? And I've gotten to the point now where I can tell right away before I even click in. I know it's a dealer.
Yeah.
But not only that, but they do list under a name, so it'll be Joe Smith, but he's a guy that works at the dealership, and he's posting under it. And then at the bottom, he'll even have his dealer number, VA dealer, da 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 da. But and I see it every day, all day. Yeah. And I mean, I guess if they're weeding them out, they're coming back at just a high rate to keep it going, because they're all over the place.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how scammers are doing it. Where you see people all the time that are posting that you're like, I don't think that's a real person, or I don't know how they're doing it, because I can't seem to create a Facebook account that besides the one for me personally.
Right.
So.
Right. I don't have the energy for that.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. You were going to say something?
Well, no, I was just going to say that, that's one of the things about this industry is we just keep shifting. We just keep, doing the next thing. And I think that is helpful too with struggling in a time where in order to thrive in a time where other people are struggling, is open your eyes to what opportunities there are, instead of just doing what you've always done, right? When you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. Unless the economy's changed, then you're going to get something worse, right?
Yeah.
So... Yeah.
Yeah. This is a reoccurring theme when I sit down and talk to people, and I've heard 3 or 4 times now when I'm talking to somebody, and in different ways they're looking at the business differently. Like I said, in different ways they're looking at the business differently in order to find new ways to make money, to sell more parts off the same car, and things like that. So, that theme just keeps coming back.
Yeah. I have to admit, I've watched your other podcasts, and I feel like you've had a lot of visionaries on, and I don't think that I'm one of them. I think I'm reactionary, right? And I do a good job at reacting, but I think looking back, when I listen to Benny Cunningham, talk about the car key program, or Scott Robertson talk about how he shifted through things during COVID, I just think they have such a big picture thing. And then when I look back at my own, path at Pete's, a lot of times I think what I'm really good at here is because I was annoyed by someone else doing it poorly. I like reacted to that and I fixed it, right? And even like, I kind of cut my teeth at Pete's in the shipping department, right? I started in the office, but then I quickly moved to the shipping department. And back then, the salespeople kind of ran the show. And I very much felt like everyone in the back was resentful of the salespeople because they were sitting in their air conditioning offices while we're working our asses off in the heat, you know, or they're in their heated offices while I'm out in the freezing cold, right? And I'm staying late to pan an axle so that the salesperson can put more dollars in his back pocket. I'm not going to get any more money from this, right? So that was so formative for me in the way that like when it was my turn to run the company, I set it up so that like the salespeople weren't in charge, right? And there's a lot of like there's a lot of benefits to that, you know? But looking back, it wasn't like I was saying like, oh, I want to set my company up in like the best way possible. I was like, these people aren't running things anymore. I'm running things, you know? And it wasn't that I had this overarching vision.
They let somebody from ops in charge.
Yeah.
And operations decided that sales wasn't running the show.
Yeah. Well, and so now, I was the sales manager at the company for the first, 9 years that I owned the business, or 8.5 years that I owned the business. I was the sales manager. And looking back, like I was often on like the side of production, not sales. And it really took me a while to like come around and be like the one fighting for the salespeople and like championing the salespeople, because I was very production focused for a long time, you know. And part of that is the business that we cater to, right? That 50% of our sales are yard to yard. We're a very production strong. You have to be very production strong, right? Other yards aren't going to keep ordering from you if you don't have great quality control, if you don't clean your parts, if you're not shipping your parts well, if you're not, grading them when they come in, and all that stuff. Like we've always done a really good job of taking care of salvage yard customers. And I think you have to be production focused for that.
And they will call you out if you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both fairly active on Facebook and the salvage forum, the professional salvage forum. And boy, if somebody ships a part that is not up to par, they're going to get roasted.
Yeah.
It's going to be on there. There's going to be a picture. There's going to be a bunch of people talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people who are holding their breath going, I hope that didn't slip out my door.
Well, and nobody's perfect, right? I'm sure I've sent out parts that I wouldn't be proud of.
And I don't think they call them by name. I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's true. Lots of people will post and say like, hey, look at this. Why are we shipping parts on tires?
Yeah.
And they're
it's
not
a frustration
saying who it's from.
Post, and I get it. And we're working hard to establish a standard. I know I've been talking about it a lot, but ARA and URG are working to develop a quality compliance standard, and we're very excited about that. Not just the collaboration with the other organization, but just the product in general and the opportunities it's going to bring. So we're excied about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know and we talked about this before we started rolling. You've shared your journey, right? The Peach journey before.
Yeah.
But just in case people watching haven't heard, can you give a 30,000 foot flyover?
Yeah.
Like how long it's been in business and how long you've been the owner and things like that?
So my grandpa started Pete's in the 50s. He was a struggling farmer, and to make ends meet, he cobbled together a tow truck. He was a handy guy, cobbled together a tow truck, started towing. He was a firefighter. So he got the contract from the city of Hudsonville overnight, because he knew all the, if you're a firefighter, you know all the cops, right? So he got the overnight contract. So he'd farm all day, tow vehicles at night. And it was his side hustle. And then his side hustle turned into like more and more of the land and the main hustle. And the salvage yard just sort of happened naturally, like so many do, because they had the tow lot, and then people wouldn't come get their car. In the 60s, the cars weren't worth the tow bill. So we didn't have the infrastructure that we do now to recycle this stuff. In the 60s, you got an fender bender, and all of a sudden your car like wasn't worth fixing anymore.
Which is crazy.
It is. It's wild. We complain so much about like the changes from the OEs and the electronics and how difficult it is to sell parts, but like we have such an incredible infrastructure now that we didn't just 50 years ago. But
I remember learning a lot, and I'm gonna interrupt, and then we'll get back to it. But I remember when I worked at Progressive, and I was learning, estimatics and claims and all this, and that was the first time. And this goes back. Never mind, it goes back a long way. But this was the first time I started to understand crumple zones and all that, and that the cars are designed to accordion, and just the cargo area where the humans are, that's to be preserved. And we've all seen it, right?
Yeah.
You see a car that's absolutely destroyed, and the place where the people are is fairly well preserved. And back in the day, you talk about these cars in the 60s and 70s, you could roll that car down a hill, and you could put it back on its wheels and probably start up and drive it away, because they were thinking in the mindset of build it to last, build it to be strong. And the result of that was a car that was very hard to destroy, but it was transferring all that energy to the people inside when it did collide with something.
Yeah. Wild.
So anyway, side rant.
My dad grew up like most, children of small business owners working in the business, and he enjoyed taking things apart, and he enjoyed the mechanical side of it. He liked fixing cars. He liked taking cars apart. He liked taking blenders apart. It was like, he was a mechanical guy, but he never liked the towing. And I can't really blame him, because, when he was like in high school, he would spend a lot of his nights like towing people out of the ditches. Like when other kids were sleeping, he's out, towing a car out of the ditch. And so when he bought the first half of the business in the 70s and the second half in the 80s. And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was like right when he bought the second half of the business, he just closed down the towing, and he was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I just want to focus on the salvage yard. And he had made friends with Brad and Mark Rose from Morris Rose Auto Parts, back when people went to the auctions in person and you like got to know people face to face.
Good times.
So Brad and Mark bought the first computer system for automotive recyclers in the state of Michigan. And my dad bought the second one. And it was like everything Brad and Mark did, my dad wanted to do it too. Like they were the example that he was going by. And so he built the business, and I grew up just like he did, working in the business, right? But for me, it was like when I was in high school, I would work at Pete's, and they would say, okay, go do this inventory audit of these, headlights that are on the third floor of the warehouse, and it's 115 degrees up there, and it's August, and I'm like sweating. Or, so now, you're in the middle of that. Stop, go deliver this part real quick. And I'm like, I'm filthy dirty. I'm 16. I'm horrified. I don't want to go see anybody when I'm dirty,
And you're a hometown girl, right?
Yeah.
So there's a pretty good chance that anybody you run into,
knows me, right? Them. Yeah. So, and I don't mean to like paint it in a bad light. It was just like, I felt like when I worked part-time at Pizza High School, I was always just pulled from one thing to the next. I never had any responsibility over one area. I was just always like pulled to do whatever needed to be done, which makes sense, right? For a kid, you're a grunt worker. You're going to say, hey, go shovel out this drain. Hey, wait a minute, stop shoveling the drain and go do this, But it's no surprise that I ran screaming from the family business. I hadn't really enjoyed working there. And I went to college, and I was an English major, and I thought I would write or I would teach, and I definitely wanted to go to grad school, but I had acquired like $48,000 in student loans by the time I graduated from college.
Be a good teacher, by the way.
Well, thank you. So I was like, I've got to work and pay some of these student loans down before I go to grad school. And I got a job, not because of my English degree, but because of my experience with QuickBooks, which I got at Pete's, in the family business. So ironically, like here I go away to college, but like it's my skills from the small business that actually got me a job. And I was the financial manager at a condominium association.
Wow.
Really enjoyed growing the business there. And I did use my English degree to communicate. I wrote cover letters for the condo associations and helped them grow the business. And that was such a transformative job for me, partially because my boss there, and I'm not trying to like drag anybody through the mud, and I don't mean to like speak negatively about people, but back then my boss, I felt like we were all doing the work and he was just having fun on his boat, and he would like come in with a Hawaiian shirt on a Friday and be like, oh yeah, thanks, pop a top, let's go, and we're like, hello, we're all working here.
Kind of tone deaf.
So that definitely has shaped me in the terms of like how I present myself, and how I want people the people who are working for me, I hope know that I'm working so hard too alongside them, and that we're all like pulling towards the same goals. And I'm not just out there, I love to have fun. I love to travel.
I was going to say, how do you keep that balance? Because I know that you and your husband, you like to travel, you like to have fun.
Yeah. And I take a lot more time off than like a regular employee, but I do work really hard too. And it's like there are ebbs and flows, like everything in life. And there are times when I end up working, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And then there's times where, like, there was a time after COVID there where things got really easy for me. And I was working like from like 9 to 4 or something. I was like working less hours than I ever had. And I, had yoga 3 mornings a week or whatever during business hours. And it was just, I was like, oh, I've got this all handled. Like, I'm the best operator because I can like work 6 hours a day and still be successful. Well, no, it just turned out that was a season.
Yeah.
That was an easy season. And then there's a difficult season and there's an easy,
That's the way it is.
But through it all, I try to do a good job of recognizing other people's work and accomplishments and rewarding them for that. And that was part of it too, right? So when I was at that company, I was helping them grow, and I went to them and said, like, I want to raise. I'm like making you all this money. And they're like, well, at your 1 year mark, and we were at 11 months at this point. And I was like, okay, I get that. But like, I was at the same time, I was working a ton of overtime, and I wasn't being paid any overtime, which is not legal. Nope. And I would not do to someone else, but they were doing it to me. So I was kind of like, well, look, you can either pay me the overtime, or like you can increase my salary, but like, I'm not going to keep doing this. And they were just like, well, you'll get your $1 an hour raise at your 1 year. So I was like, here, I'm working so hard to grow this business, and I didn't feel appreciated. I didn't feel like I was being fairly compensated. And I have really tried to take that with me into all my interactions with my staff. Now I try really hard to compensate people fairly, pay them what they're worth. And if, like, normally we would do an evaluation at 1 year, but the person's killing it, like, I'm not going to let a date on a calendar stop me from rewarding someone, and I do try really hard to be fair, and open about things with people.
Yeah, and you're also very involved during my time here for the past 7 or 8 years. You've been very involved in committees, right? So you're currently the chairperson of our awareness committee, which is basically marketing. And I think Scott and I kind of came up with the idea at our strategic planning meeting in Clearwater. So that was 4 years ago. And he was the chairperson, and then you came on, and you were one of the committee members. And then after a year or two, he asked you, and you took over. And so my point is, and I know you're involved in other committees as well. So you're not just involved. You're very active, which is different, because a lot of committee members are on the committee and they are mildly engaged. And then you've got some that are very engaged, and I'm listening to you, and that's kind of your MO, right?
Yeah.
When you get involved in something, you get involved.
Yeah, you're right. And my getting involved with associations started early. I kind of got derailed on my origin story, but I can remember even way back when I was in college and I was working at Pete's, like, part-time on brakes and things. I got involved in ARM, the Automotive Recyclers of Michigan.
Yeah.
Because my dad had asked me to do our, like, stormwater program. And so I, like, went to the ARM conferences that I had attended as, like, a child, running around like a banshee, you know, but now I'm, like, going as a college student, like, trying to be a professional and learn, about stormwater. I became a certified stormwater operator, and I implemented the My Car and Car programs, back when I was, like, I think I was 19 or 20, and even back then when I would go to the association meetings, I just got so much out of it. Like, I got so much out of going to a meeting and just talking shop with the people that do what we do, but a little different. And I just was able to, like, bring so much back with me every time I went to something like that. And I just felt like the people got me, and it was a really formative for me.
You found your tribe. It was your tribe.
Yeah. And I found that I couldn't believe how open people were and how people would help you, and that's a through line in the industry. And
really is.
My dad always told me that our competitors are not other auto recyclers. Our competitors are the OE in the aftermarket, and that a rising tide raises all ships. And so when auto recyclers do well, when my biggest competitors, Weller's right down the road from me, they're way bigger than I am. They're an awesome operation. We got so many great recyclers in Michigan, but we work so well with them, and they're one of our best customers. We're one of their best customers.
Yeah.
And we get along so well. And, like, I would never say a bad word about them, because when they do well, we do well. And when we do well, they do well, right? And so I think that's so special. And it's really not something that, like, you find in many places.
Nope.
But I got brought back into the Pete's fold when I was working for that condominium management company. I actually, like, had said to my mom on the phone, like, if Dad ever is interested, like, I'm willing to talk, and she's like, you're not going to believe this. Like, your dad's business manager guy, he was like a consultant, right? The consultant told him like he's got to replace his office manager. Like she's got to go. She's got to be replaced. And it was like literally that day that he had been told. The day I said to my mom,
wow.
like, and so it's like, okay, we got some timing going on here, you know. So I came back into Pete's, took over the office, revamped the office. We had been just like bringing all the books to an accountant and then paying an accountant gobs of money to like do things that could easily be done in house, you know. So I did that, and then I moved to shipping, and then from shipping I went to production manager and then general manager. And through that, ARM and the Automotive Recyclers of Michigan was such a big resource to me. And I did go to URG conferences and ARA conferences as well. And those, again,
what time frame is this? Is
so,
this 90s?
No, the early 2000s.
Early 2000s?
I'm a little younger than you give me credit for.
No, I'm just
teasing. No, I'm just teasing. I did go to some. You know what? One of my earliest.
You're still running around like a banshee in the 90s.
Yeah. One of my earliest memories is at a ARA conference in San Antonio, Texas, because my parents took us along to that one, and my mom had like gone shopping while my dad was in the classes, and got us like outfits, and it was like I had like a cowgirl outfit with like boots and a hat that I wore, and I'll never forget that. I'll you know, it was like a formative experience for me as like a 5-year-old or something.
Did they always bring you to the shows?
Not always, but I think that was right around the time when my dad was president of ARM, and so then he like went to the ARA shows, I think, when it was like convenient for him, like if it was like in a geographical location, or if there was like something big going on in the industry, he would go, but he didn't like go every year.
Gotcha.
And I think that was more normal back in the day. Like I think there were probably people that went every year, but there were also people that like went when it was near them, you know? And we started going to URG when they started having the URG conferences in Denver, and that was huge. So anyway, I came back to work at Pete's in like 2006, worked there from 2006 to 2012, and then I left and I went and worked at American Auto Parts in Omaha, Nebraska for 2 years. Then I worked at H&H Loveland Auto Parts, one of Zane's branches of H&H. And then I did some consulting work, and I got to travel around the country and in Canada and help recyclers sell cores and help them become more profitable and efficient and all that. And that was like an incredible education for me. Right before I came back I bought Pete's in January 2016.
So 10 years?
So 10 years ago. Yeah. And I got back involved in the association pretty quickly. I had been involved in the Automotive Recyclers of Michigan back in, with the 2006 to 2012. And I was on the board of directors for a good portion of that time. But when I came back to buy Pete's, I really felt like I need to focus on Pete's. Like once I bought the business, we had tons of debt. We had this huge payment to make every month. And like I really just felt like I need to not like throw my energy out. I need to like conserve all my energy in. And I really just focused on Pete's for a couple of years before I really wanted to like get back involved. And I was asked to be on some ARM committees and board of directors and things. I was asked to get involved in a couple different things that I really just felt like I needed to pour all my energy into Pete's at first. And then once Pete's was doing well and we were growing and things were going well, then I was like, okay, I don't necessarily know that that's like, the best path, right? Sometimes when you're struggling, like it's great to reach out for help and get involved too. But for me, it was like, I knew what I needed to do and I needed to focus it at home. And then once I was like solid, then I could branch out. But I ran for the PRP board at one point, and I was like, I just feel like there's so much more out there, and by putting myself in the conversations, like I learn so much, I get so much more that I can bring back to Pete's, whether it's URG or PRP or ARA or whatever it is. Like when you put yourself in a room with other recyclers, you're going to learn and you're going to bring it back to your business. So I was like real excited about the PRP board. I remember when I first signed up to run for it, but I was like, I've got this. And then a week later, Jim McKinney said he was running, and I was like, oh, I'm out. Like I can't compete with Jim McKinney, and he got that slot, and he's still in the
I didn't realize they had you had to run for it. Like, what is that?
Yeah. So there's
who votes?
So there's the whole membership votes, but boy, I shouldn't say that because I don't know.
Yeah.
But there are regions, and each region has a representative from the board with a facility in that territory. And I don't remember if all of PRP votes are just the facilities in the territory. Though I don't remember how that goes. But yes, they are elected.
What you knew is Jim is in your region.
Yes, Jim was in my region. As soon as he threw his hat in the ring, I was like, I'm out. This is like one of the most charismatic, wonderful people in the industry,
Really is.
And he beat me handily, and I will always concede defeat to Jim McKinney.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but then I was asked to be on some ARA committees. That I'm on the vendor relations committee as well, and I'll never forget that because Shannon Nordstrom came to me and he's like, Amber, I'm wondering if you'd be interested in this, but we need to like talk about up front, like, I'm wondering, I can't remember how he said it, but he was basically like, can you put like the needs of all auto recyclers above like your needs, and like, can you talk to these, like Copart and IAA and all these like big people, like as a representative of the industry, not just a representative of your business. And I was like, oh boy, I must have a reputation. I'm like a terrier, I'm or a bulldog, I'm like, I can be very aggressive. Yeah. I always say I'm not passive aggressive. I'm aggressive. Like if I have a problem, you'll hear about it, I
like that.
But I was like, Shannon, I can do this. Like I can put aside my own things and like look at the industry.
Switch hats,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And generally when things are good for the industry as a whole, they are good for Pete's, but not like just holding on to the one little thing that Pete's had a problem with and looking at the bigger picture, was a good lesson for me to learn right up front,
I bet. Part of what you were saying about how you learn so much by giving of your time and volunteering. This is what a lot of people don't see about the executive committee, right? So the executive committee is demanding. It consumes a lot of time and energy, and it consumes money. The executive committee members are traveling, and ARA tries really hard, and we're trying to increase how much we get to cover that. So to alleviate the burden, we want that to be a role that's open for anybody who may be eligible for it, and it not be such a financial burden. So we're working hard to balance that. But what I hear over and over again from executive committee members as I've been around and I've watched them cycle through is as much as they give, they get back so much more. Because they find themselves, part of it is they find themselves at the tip of the spear, so to speak. Like we're having conversations that sometimes they don't go anywhere and sometimes they do, but they're just right at the forefront of all that. And I think even Scott was joking about it when I interviewed him. He was like, it's like you go from drinking from a fire hose to walking around thirsty. The day you walk out and you're no longer on the executive committee, you're just like, kind of out there. Yeah. But they will all tell you that they got so much out of it. And I think that's true of volunteering in general.
Agreed.
Like I don't care what you say. When my wife and we raised 4 kids, and one of our kids took a gap year, and I remember when she asked us if she could take a gap year, she wanted to do volunteer work. She was going to be involved in a missionary program, and we were like, absolutely. And I've always felt that way. That I feel still very convicted, especially when you look at the student debt problem that we have in America, that a lot of kids, unless they're going off to college for the college experience, which is very expensive party, very expensive party. And where if you're coming out of high school and you want to be a CPA or you want to be a podiatrist or whatever, right? Great, go to college. But if you're just want to get in there and start and get your general studies done and you'll figure it out along the way, I think those students ought to really consider a gap year and volunteer, not sit on the couch, not backpack through the whatever, but like go and dedicate your time serving other people. I know that you've done volunteer work, and I've done a lot of volunteer work, and I have never come out of a volunteer experience without it rearranging my priorities in a better way. Yeah. And I just think a lot of young people who are going into college thinking, well, I'll figure it out along the way. Just pump the brakes. They got so much time. They're so young. Go out and volunteer and serve other people. And I bet you within 12 months, you're really going to understand what it is that drives you.
Yeah. That I have so much to say on the volunteering subject because it's just been so powerful in my life. I volunteer in the foster care system. I'm a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate.
No kidding.
So basically, I go to court every time when I'm assigned a case.
My wife and I fostered for many years.
Yeah. So basically, I'm assigned a case, and then I'm with that case until those kids are no longer in the foster care system.
Wow.
And I'm a lot of times the only person that remains the same because caseworkers change. The caseworker job is a brutal job.
It really
People, if they aren't quitting because it's so difficult, they're getting promoted. And so then the caseworkers are constantly changing, and you constantly have new caseworkers, and you have new lawyer. The lawyers will get reassigned to other cases, and you'll get a new lawyer. And there's so many doctors and therapists, and these kids see so many people, and the CASA is often like one of the only consistencies through the case. And we do things like we play, like I bring Sorry and we play Sorry for an hour.
Yeah.
And you can't believe what comes out of that as
Yes,
well,
I can.
But yeah, it is at times really difficult and heartbreaking, and it's really can be very hard in some ways because you want to see the kids safe, but you also know the statistics that like kids are almost always better off at home, even if their parents are drug addicts, even if their parents are this, even if that, kids are almost always better off at home. Statistically, you know, and so it's just really difficult to stand up and say in front of a judge, like, I think this child should go home if you're worried about their safety at home. But it's also really, really difficult to stand up and say, I think this child shouldn't go home. Yeah. Right. But like you were saying, you always get back more than you give, every time. And there, I don't think that, like you said, that's specific to any one organization. And I think to myself that's where I think real self-confidence comes from. That's where feeling good about yourself comes from. Like I think in our culture, we're always like looking for that way to be happy. Right. And what I've found is it generally is when I'm not thinking about myself at all. Right. 100%. And I love the definition of humility as being, I'm not thinking less of myself. I'm thinking of myself less. Yeah. Right? Like humility isn't thinking badly of myself. It's just I'm not thinking about myself because I'm so worried about someone else.
I think there's science behind this where if somebody's struggling, with depression or anxiety or something, and they go out and they get involved in a volunteer activity, there's science in that helps them, that makes them feel better. Yeah. Because I think it's what you said. I think a lot of what goes on when somebody's feeling sad or feeling anxious is that they're stuck in their own head. Yeah. And what you just said is key, right? When you go out and maybe you're just helping somebody else out with a bigger problem. Yeah. And for a little while, you're not in your head, you're trying to be in their head. And then you see a tiny little incremental uptick in that person as a result of your interaction, and boom, dopamine hit, right? Yeah. You're feeling good. You've done something. You know that time was well spent. Yeah, and
I love that.
Yeah. And same thing with physical activity, right?
Yeah,
get out
absolutely.
And move.
Yeah. Yeah, I practice yoga several times a week, and it's even more for my mind than it is for my body at this point, because I find that if I take that time where I slow down and I'm not thinking, I'm following the instructions, and I'm, clearing my mind over and over again. Like it just changes my whole day. It changes my whole week. It changes everything. But I used to live in a really anxiety ridden brain, and in a brain that was so busy. My thoughts came so fast. And as we'd be talking, I'd be thinking about 7 different things I could say in response, and I was always projecting to the future. And I think in some ways as business owners, we do have to be like cognizant of the future, but I just live in such a different head than I used to, simply with like very small practices, like getting out of my head. When my thoughts start to race, okay, what's something I can see? Here's 5 things I can see. I can see a doorknob. I can see my award on the wall. I can see my picture. I can see Vince. I can see his glasses. What's something I can smell? I might even be able to smell a little bit of coffee, So I go through my senses, right? I try to pick 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in my senses. What can I taste? What can I see? What can I smell? What can I hear? What can I touch? What's touching me?
And is this just an exercise in getting you out of your head?
Yeah. Anytime my thoughts are anytime I'm like spinning out, anytime I'm having repetitive thoughts where I keep having the same thoughts, like I just stop and I just try to like notice the physical things, what's happening right now. Because 99% of the shit that I worry about isn't actually happening.
Man,
it's not.
That's so true.
And just stopping and doing those little physical things can really help me regroup. And the other big thing that really changed my anxiety is just that I made a commitment to only speak to myself the way that I would talk to my little sister. I have 2 little sisters, and I usually like picture one or the other one. And I think, well, would I say this to them? And this was something that I did just over and over and over and over and over again, when I would catch myself beating myself up, what a stupid piece of shit I am, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm bad, or I'm fat, or all these things. If I wouldn't say it out loud to the face of my sweet baby sister, then I'm not going to say it to myself.
Auto recycling plays a critical role in today's automotive supply chain, and the Automotive Recyclers Association is leading that charge. ARA equips recyclers with training, certification, advocacy, and business tools needed to operate safely, stay compliant, and lead the industry into the future. From EV handling and education to cost-saving programs and national advocacy, ARA helps recyclers stay ahead of the change. Membership means credibility, connection, and a seat at the table shaping what comes next. Lead the profession, protect your future. Join the Automotive Recyclers Association at a-r-a.org.
If I wouldn't say it out loud to the face of my sweet baby sister, then I'm not going to say it to myself.
Wow.
Now, it's not that I wouldn't say to my sister, like, you're being an idiot right now, and I think you should, like, go home and sleep before you make another decision, right? I would say that to my sister.
Sure.
But I'm not going to say, like, you're
mean.
a terrible person, right? And
yeah.
I used to talk to myself in a really mean voice.
Yeah.
And I used to find myself badgering myself over and over again. And it's literally taken me years.
What clicked?
Well, like I said, I made a commitment to speak to myself differently.
I mean, what drove
sobriety.
you to recognize that as just bad, harmful behavior?
Yeah.
Like,
so
I guess just wasn't getting any better.
Getting sober was, I guess, the catalyst, because I think that before I was sober, like, I would drink away the things I didn't want to think about at the end there. And so when you took away the alcohol, my life immediately got a little bit better, right? Because I wasn't hungover anymore, and I wasn't like desperately trying to escape my problems.
How long have you been sober?
Since 2018. It'll be 8 years in July, so seven years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So when I got sober, like, my life got better because of the alcohol, but my mental health was it was awful. And like it did.
And you took away your coping mechanism.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you're just left with the mess.
Yes. And so it was like, something has to change here. Like, I'm miserable and I don't have any way to deal with that, And so one of the things I did was make that commitment to myself, and it didn't stick for a while. Like, I practiced at it for years before it got to be intuitive to me.
That is such an interesting, like, did you hear that? Did you read that? Or did you just one day think, I shouldn't talk to myself? Like, because I think I never thought about that. And I certainly say things to myself that I would never say to other people. Because I'm similar. I imagine a lot of people are. When I do certain things, I'm like, what a piece of shit. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't know if it just occurred to me.
It's more
one
when
day
I don't do
what.
things. Like, if I get out of habit, if I stop, I'm in a rut right now. I haven't been in the gym and I haven't been training for a few weeks just for travel. And I am telling myself what a piece of shit I am every day. Every day.
Another thing that I read that made a big impact on me was that self-confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself. And that made a lot of sense to me, because I kept making these unrealistic promises to myself and then absolutely dragging myself over the coals for not meeting my completely unrealistic expectations, right?
You were setting yourself up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's an unattainable goal.
Yeah.
And now I'm not going to attain it.
I'm going to go to the gym every single day, no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to, eventually something's going to happen. You're going to get sick, whatever. And then I would like let everything fall apart. Right. And so I tried to only say I'm going to do things that I'm really going to do, and set really realistic expectations for myself. And that's helped a lot. Yeah. That's helped immensely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. What a great journey. And you feel like where you are today versus where you were 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's definitely night and
8
day.
years ago, did you ever think you would be in the headspace you are now?
No, honestly, I think I lived in a really chaotic brain for most of my life, and the change didn't happen overnight. Like I said, it literally took years of practicing this, and I can fall back into it, but I catch myself pretty quickly now.
Sure.
Now I pretty quickly catch myself if I start to berate myself or I start to feel like that. And now that feels weird. Whereas before it used to be the opposite, you know?
Yeah.
But it just does. I hope that people, if they're struggling with anxiety, that they do have hope, because it can change. Like you said, I wouldn't have imagined, 8 years ago that I would live in a brain that wasn't constantly just
Sure.
full of garbage, and that I was constantly,
How long you been involved in foster care?
Let's see. I was trained during the pandemic. So
Okay.
I was trained in 2020. So 5 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah.
But you haven't fostered. You've just
No,
had this
yep.
the role.
And that is how I found it. I was interested in fostering,
Uh-huh.
but it's just my husband and I. It would be a total lifestyle change
Sure.
to actually have a child come into our house. Someone who already has children could much easier
Yeah.
foster not that it's ever easy, but our life is not set. Our life is set up for dogs.
No, I get
You'll see that tomorrow.
Yeah.
The dogs run the show, you
Yeah.
know. But when I was researching it, that's how I stumbled across the CASA program.
Right.
And yeah, it's really neat.
We had 4 kids, and then we fostered. First time we did it, we did respite.
Mm-hmm.
So we had one little girl, and she was high risk foster kid, and so we would take her every weekend and give the home
Yeah.
that was caring for her a break. And then one day, my wife literally went to meet the caseworker to pick her up,
Mm-hmm.
and she was no show. So we called. Oh, she got placed. They never told us nothing. They just
Yeah.
shuffled her away to another home, and that was the end of that. And then a few years later, it was long enough where we had to go back and get retrained all over again.
Yeah.
And we did it again, and then we ended up 2, 4. We had 5 different times. So we had two boys and 2 little brothers, 10 and 11 years old, and then we had 2 sisters. And they should not have been in the foster program. That was a stupid family feud,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so they were with us a short time. And then we had another girl that was with us. She was the last one we had, and she was with us from time about a year and a half. She was 16. She was 18. We dropped her off at college, and it was the last time we ever saw her. But it was tough. It was tough, and I still to this day, I'm glad we did it. But then I still look back, and I some of the impact that it had on our family was not good.
Yeah.
And so as a dad, you
Yeah.
kind of second guess some of those decisions, but it's no Hallmark movie. I'll tell
Yeah.
you that. It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tougher on the children,
Of course.
obviously,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's so
You're
much
just
trauma.
there to try to, I often described it as and this is kind of crude, but the kids come to your home and they have a 5-gallon bucket full of shit.
Yeah.
And your job is to try to take some of the shit out of the bucket before they leave. And hopefully their bucket's a little lighter when they go.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the best you can hope for.
Yeah.
And but it was a time, where we did it. We our hearts were in it, but it was tough. Especially the last one was really tough.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but anyway, maybe we should talk about auto recycling.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry at all. I love talking about other things, and I think it's fun for people who watch and listen to learn that people have all these whole other lives outside of what they see at the conference and things like that. Like you ride a horse,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah. I borrow a horse. People that
Which, by the way, that's the best.
Yeah.
The best way to do it, right?
Yeah, people are always talking about my horse, and I was like, I wish it was my horse. It's
Do you,
somebody
though?
else's. No, I don't, because I don't need the vet bills and the farrier bills and the
Exactly.
getting up at 5 a.m. to pick
Yeah.
the stalls before work and all that. I don't need that. But yeah, I do love to ride, and I used to show horses on the quarter horse circuit, and then my little sisters showed horses, and I was like their groom, chasing them, running around after them, helping them. And that was a really special time for all of us, the three of us sisters. Like, we'd load up the horse trailer and get in the motorhome and drive to the horse show and, do the thing. It was a blast. And I could see myself doing that in retirement again, but you got to have time and money. My hobbies these days are more like reading, and things that you don't need as much time and money for, but someday maybe.
We live in the country, and so there's several horse farms around where we live, and there's a few of them that are large enough that host shows. And we also have an Airbnb, and so it's our basement, separate entrance, whole 9 yards. Ever since the kids moved out, Michelle and I were like, we got this big old house, so we just made the basement its own little apartment. So we Airbnb that, and there's one woman who comes and stays with us, and she'll stay with us when this one particular horse farm is doing a show, and she braids the hair of the horses. Yeah. And she goes to work at night. Yeah. And she works through the night like a nurse. Yeah. And she must make good money. Yeah,
it is. It's definitely good money. Yeah, it's fun. And I'm a terrible braider, so I was one of those people that would pay someone like her to do it because I can band where you basically put a lot of little ponytails in the mane, and I could make that look good. But the braids, you have to be so precise. I'm not a precise person. I'm a like slap it on kind of a person, And so I had to pay a braider. When I showed Hunt Seat. So it's fun
interesting.
stuff.
It's always interesting, and I've said this before, that all of the ways there are to make a career, like when I was in high school, nobody ever, like I had no idea. Like the massive amount of career paths that there are, and for some reason, when you're a young person, of about 10% of them, and then you figure the rest out, as you're going through life. And there's just so many different ways to make a living. What do you do differently at like, what are some of the major changes that you've made at Pete's? When you look back, I mean, some of it is just because the industry evolves, right? Yeah. And then some of it is maybe have you looked at certain things and said, I'm going to try this.
Yeah, so I think one thing that comes to mind right away is our pictures and videos. And I know a lot of people are doing this, but we started taking like over 100 pictures of every vehicle like years ago, and we take a ton of pictures. And I find that is so helpful.
Swing that base around that mic is there. You go. There you go. Just bring it closer.
Just get a little closer. Ooh, sorry. Yeah. So one thing that we do that we've been doing for years actually is we take a ton of pictures. We take over 100 pictures of every single vehicle, and we take YouTube videos. I know a lot of people are doing that, but that's something that I find when I fill in sales and I'm trying to source parts, like I'm again, here's me being reactionary, right? I wasn't visionary, like a picture's worth 1,000 words. I was reactionary. Why does this recycler only have 10 pictures of this car? I can't see the options in the back. I need it to sell the $600 part, right? So we take an absolute ton of pictures. And I would say that the biggest strength at Pete's is our people. We have the absolute best people. And one of those people is Nate. Nate was a dismantler for us for years. He was our top dismantler. And he did things like, this is like long before most people were like recording anything, right? Now we have like cameras everywhere. It would be easy to do this, but this is like, I want to say this is probably like circa 2008, 2009. He's like setting up a tripod with a camera, and he videotaped himself dismantling so that he could reduce the number of times he'd walk around the vehicle. Nice. And so
I love that.
The vehicle would get in the bay, and he'd look at it, and he'd think about it, and he'd walk over. He had like a pouch he'd wear.
Is this who I'm going to meet?
No.
Okay,
you're meeting Jim.
But, I'm sorry.
So Nate, he had like a pouch he would wear, like a tool belt. And like when the car would come in, he'd look at it, think about it. He'd go over to his toolbox and he'd put all the tools he thought he needed in his pouch. And then he'd see if he could dismantle the vehicle by only walking around. I don't remember if it was 2 times or 3 times or something, but he was like, had a goal that he didn't want to go around that vehicle more than so many times. And he was like our top dismantler for years. He always had the best.
Don't you love people who approach things like that?
Systematically like that, yeah.
Yeah, systematically, but not just systematically, but like, I'm doing this task.
Yeah.
But I think I can do it better.
Yeah, I'm going to do it the best way.
I want to do it the best way.
So Nate quit in a very exciting way one day when when his boss at the time, who is not me, who's not with the company anymore, his boss at the time, basically accused him of throwing out a lower control arm as being bent that wasn't bent. He was like, I know that wasn't bent, and Nate like climbed into the dumpster and got the bent lower control arm and went and put it on the guy's desk and said, I quit. And he left because he was like, I would never have like thrown away a $50 part as saying it was bent that it wasn't, and he was like incensed, which again, I love that because like he takes pride in his work. I would have been offended too. I'm glad he was offended. I'm glad. Yeah. So we lured him back in and we
Is the other guy still with you?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. The person who fired him or he quit.
Yeah. The one that accused him of it.
Long time gone. So we lured him back into inventory. And one of the cool things about having an inventory guy who's been a dismantler is like he knows which cars, like when they're hit on the right side, it busts all the tabs on the left headlight, right? Like he's seen this stuff. He's seen how these things come apart. And so when he's inventorying, like he's just so good. And he applies that same attention to detail with inventory that he did with dismantling in efficiency. And then he takes the pic. Like I told you, we take over 100 pictures of every car. He takes them in the exact same order every time.
That's amazing.
So he always takes the picture of the door trim panel and then this and then this and that, And so that means that my salespeople don't have to go hunting through the 100 pictures. They know exactly where to scroll to because they know exactly what order he's going to walk around the car, exactly where the pictures are going to be.
Oh, I hope people are listening.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they will. Everybody I think that buys parts from us knows that we like do a great job at pictures and that they can find the pictures.
Just a little tidbit about the order and how that impacts the sales people and makes their job more efficient and easier. I think that's great.
Yeah, and they can just so much easier sell extra sales stuff, right? So there's lots of inventory. Most of our sales are in inventory sales, right? Parts that we bought the car for, parts that we priced and we expect, I expect to get $1,700 out of this engine. I expect to get $300 out of this door. But there's a lot of value that you can add in the little stuff, right? In the electronics, in extra selling the trim piece, in extra selling the, the carpet. There's all these things that becomes so much more possible when you have really good pictures of the parts because a salesperson's only going to like attempt to sell a rear carpet so many times and have the parts tech come back and say, oh no, that's no good or that's bad or that's it's the wrong thing or whatever, it's not the right style before they're just going to give up going forward, and if you have really good pictures, then you have a lot better chance of like actually getting the part that you need the first try. And then you have a chance of like that snowballing into saying yes more and more and more often with customers.
Do you think so? Yeah. So you're seeing, taking 100 plus pictures of a car, you're selling more parts on the cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think owners could learn? Like, who should they go talk to in their facility that maybe they don't consider, that they haven't thought about talking to learn something about their business? Because I think it's just really interesting the way that whole story you just told.
Yeah, I think it probably depends on the business, but the best way that I learn is when I fill in. I filled in shipping earlier this year. I filled in accounting earlier this year. I filled in sales.
Have you ever dismantled? I've been listening to you.
No,
I haven't heard you say dismantled.
I've pulled plenty of unbolted parts. I've pulled a few parts that were like super easy. All you need is a screwdriver. All you need is like to get these tabs out or whatever. But I don't dismantle. I don't pull parts. And I don't like fill in for people even like regularly. I'm not like normally filling in for sales. But when I do, I always find something that can be fixed. And when I fill in, if I don't fill in shipping for a year, I'm going to find a lot more than if I fill in once every 6 months, right? And I find like when you do the job, then you'll be like, why is this tape measure a piece of shit? Like I need a new tape measure. It's a lot of times it's simple things. And I always tell people like, ask me for what you need. But so it doesn't always occur. People just don't think of things and they're just trying to do their job and get on with their life, and I've been pestering them. I want to rearrange our shipping department a little bit. And I've been pestering them for a while. Like, think about what layout you want. And I don't think that they're going to come up with a layout. I think we're just going to have to do it and like play with it and have fun with it. And
you should watch some of those tours. Have you seen the tours?
Yeah. I really love the ARA tours.
I desperately want to do more of those because it's such a big win. Like everybody loves it. And I was thinking about, what you were saying about supply, tape measure or whatever supplies. Do you see the one at Nordstrom's? He's got that vending machine. And then the employees have a card and they scan it. So not only do they have fast access to the blades and the gloves and the PPE and everything that they may need, but you know exactly what's being used and who's using it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Really
I thought that was a really cool thing.
I've been to Nordstrom's. It's just an amazing operation.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So what else have you, how are you embracing technology?
We use AI in a few different ways. We've partnered with Auto Partnered Solutions and with a phone system, and I'm currently doing a beta test on the new, their new ARI, their ARI that can actually quote parts for you. But I really love it so much. It's so insane how good it's been for our business. It used to be that if somebody called in after hours and they got we had a message system set up, you could leave a message, we'll call you back. We'd almost never get someone to leave a message. Most of the time it's just a hang up and we just never hear from the person again,
Would you? I wouldn't.
I don't leave messages.
No, I don't leave messages.
Yeah. I also hate talking to AI. And so often when I get an AI system, I'm like, real person. I'm that person. Yeah. And then I'm putting AI in my business. You might think that's crazy, right? But what happens is when someone like me says real person, it creates a ticket. Well, now it can transfer that call to a salesperson if it's during business hours. Generally, they're only getting the system because our salespeople were all on the phone, right? So we have it set up so anytime that a customer's holding for 60 seconds or more, they get kicked over to the robot. And then after hours, they get to the robot. But the point is that now we have a record of it. And now we have an expectation that we are going to follow up with that customer. And what we're doing is we're calling and texting these customers and saying so sorry you got that stupid automated system. How can I help you today? If the customer doesn't like the system, agree with them, tell them it's terrible. And then I can help you, but now you actually have a real person with a real parts need, and we can call them back and we can capture that.
So you're making sales.
Oh yeah, big time. And I think that we're just losing a lot less customers. Cause what, if I'm a customer, I'm calling, I'm trying to find a car part and I call Pete's Auto Parts and I get kicked over to a robot and I hang up. What am I going to do? I'm going to call the next place. I'm going to keep calling until I find someone. And so then I'm making my second call and I get a text message and it's Pete's Auto Parts and they're real sorry and they'd love to quote me a part. Or I get a call back and they'd love to quote me a part. We're selling a lot of parts that way that we were previously just missing that call.
Wow. I interviewed Chris and his episode. So by the time this episode airs,
Chris will air.
Chris is going to air next week, and this episode will probably air in a month or probably 2 months, a month and a half. So next Wednesday, and it was a fascinating conversation. It was challenging for me and I think I finally at some point just gave over to it, just kind of gave into it. When I sit down with the recyclers, it's easy. Yeah. When I sit down with vendors, right? Then I always tell them, look, this is a conversation. This can be about the person, not the product. Yeah. Right. But it's really hard. When I was talking to Chris and we got around to talking about it, I put it off until the end, but then it's it's a lot at the end, right? Yeah. And we talked about what he's doing and all that. And I was excited. I mean, it's fascinating.
It's really fun. Yeah. It's really cool too. It's amazing how fast it can change, if you hear a call that you don't like, the way that she said something, all you do is you fire off an email, or now the way they have it, you can update your own FAQ that informs the agent. And so now I can I can tell I want you to say this instead, and I want you to use this terminology or whatever. And it's just instant. It just updates. It's so great.
We do the same thing. When we rebuilt our website, we have a chat bot. You've seen it. You were part of it. And every day we can go in and we can see what, I am shocked every day when I go in and see how much traffic, how much conversation is occurring between the public and ARA every day.
That's so cool.
Every day. Yeah. And a lot of it's junk, but not all of it.
Yeah.
Like there's some significant inquiries and people are joining. Like we
Yeah.
never had that before, but we made it so easy now on the website. You can just go in and you can join ARA, and we tell people, if you're not an auto recycler, we don't give refunds.
Yeah.
So read everything before you do it.
Yeah.
And we haven't had any problems, but
Yeah.
we're getting new members once or twice a week through the website.
Wow. That's so cool.
We've never had that.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
That's awesome. I also wonder if we could take all the text from the chats and feed it into another thing and say what are the top blog posts that would help drive people who are like this to ours. And I could do that with my site too. See, this is where we get back into why committees are so beneficial for the member, not just for the association. I'll be in a conversation about the ARA website and I'll be like, I'm going to do this at Pete's, or I'm going to do something. I'm going to take this, turn it on its head and do it differently at Pete's, right? I could probably get the transcripts from all my podium chats and then feed them into an AI and say hey, come up with some FAQs or come up with some blog posts that would answer the common questions my customers are asking and drive more people to my site. And then I always take that. I like to write my own stuff because the way that the algorithms have changed, if you use AI to write your blog post, it's probably not going to show up because they know that you used AI to write your blog post, right? So I like to use the AI for the ideas and the big picture stuff, and then I like to write my own stuff. But
I listened to I forget where I was recently because I've been in a few places, but there was a recycler and he was saying that he takes. So I think he's probably part of Profit Team because he was talking about Kunkel and some of what Kunkel teaches about answering phones and sales calls and things like that. And he must have a guide of some type, but he said he'll take his salespeople's phone calls that are recorded, transcribe them, drop it into AI with the guidelines of what he wants. It will identify who's doing well and who may need some coaching.
Very cool.
Yeah. And it spits it right out. Here's the goal. Here's what we probably wanted to say. And here's where we kind of came up short. And this is maybe some coaching.
Yeah.
This one was great. I
love
thought,
that.
isn't that great?
Yeah, that's really cool. We have in Ring Central, we use the AI through Ring Central, which I negotiated that pretty hard, and I tell everyone who's interested in Ring Central that they will come down on they try to sell you $60 per user per month or something for the AI add-on, and it seems insane. They will come down on that. You can negotiate it, but we use the AI like crazy. It's amazing. You can set up a tracker, and the tracker can be for a specific word or set of words, or it can be for a concept or idea. And so I've got a tracker set up for rudeness, and so if the AI detects that that there was rudeness, it flags it, and I can click on my rudeness tracker, and then I can see every conversation where the AI detected rudeness. Now, was it the customer or the employee, right?
Yeah.
And then, but even with when the customer's being rude, how do we respond to it, right? And I can do the same thing, so I've got one set up for warranties that's tell me every time we did offer the warranty and we did it well. And then another one that's set up tell me any time that we quoted an engine or a transmission or an axle or a transfer case, but we didn't offer an extended warranty. And so now we get that info just within minutes of the call ending. So now my sales manager can go oh, hey, you forgot to offer a warranty on this engine. Follow back up with call the customer right now.
Oh yeah.
Call right now, so that you can offer them the warranty.
Do it now.
You only have to do that so many times before they're just going to offer the warranty every time because they don't want to have to call the customer back and say oh, this is Amber from Pete's. I'm sorry I forgot to offer you the warranty, but we do have a 3-year warranty and we offer labor coverage, and I just want to talk to you about your warranty options. You only have to do that a couple times before people are going to make sure to offer the warranty, right? So it's amazing the tools that are available to us. We went paperless at the end of last year. Basically, we lost our office manager really suddenly and tragically. Passed away in her sleep, totally unexpected, and it feels weird and bad and terrible to say oh, we made all these great changes after that because obviously we miss her every day.
Sure.
Audrey was my friend and worked with me for over a decade, and was married to my shipping manager Jim, and was such an important part of the business. And then in her absence, I was filling in doing the accounts payable and accounts receivable until we moved some positions around. We moved
Right.
someone else into that position and trained someone new and all that. So I immediately like made all these big changes, and it's so much better, right? And there's part of me that's like, oh man, why didn't we do this when Audrey was alive? Like we could have done all this stuff with Audrey when Audrey was alive. But sometimes it takes, like a perspective change before you make a change. You know, sometimes you're just like going along, like we paid the bills the same way for so many years, like. It is what it is, right? And then once we lost her, and I was like, now I'm paying the bills until I train someone to do this. I was like, I'm going to do this like the most efficient way possible, like the easiest way, And so then I set everything up to like go completely paperless. And now instead of having like boxes and boxes of, papers and bills, like what are we doing? It's 2026.
Right. Yeah.
Why are we not, why didn't we do this years ago? But there are so many things that like they just become part of the fabric, and it takes stepping outside the business and looking at it, or it takes losing someone, or it takes some major change to like jar you out of it, to go like, oh, there's a better way of doing this, you know?
I'm hearing, if you're an owner, an operator, and you haven't looked closely at a department in the last year or so, you probably should.
Yeah.
And consider deconstructing it and putting it back together. I know that's the way, that's the way I've done things.
Yeah.
And not just at ARA. I mean, I can remember back when I was at Mannheim, I ran a department. I had about 4 or 5 people on my staff, a few people inside title clerk, and a couple other people inside, and then a guy outside. And I remember telling them, and I'm usually pretty slow at the beginning. I don't want to come in and make a bunch of changes, right? So I'm just sitting here watching, and I remember seeing that people just kind of get in a habit, right? Mm-hmm. They just do things the way that works for them, and this kind of goes back to your guy Nate. Was that his name?
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to your guy Nate. What I love about Nate is Nate was doing what DJ Harrington always preaches, which is CANI, constant and never-ending improvement.
Yeah.
Like keep looking at what you're doing, and just because it works doesn't mean you're doing it the best and most efficient way. And Nate obviously was a guy that was looking to improve what he was doing. And some people, they get a system that works, and then they work the system.
Yeah.
And I was seeing some things that were working, but not working as well as they should. And I remember sitting down with them and go, look, I'm going to sit inside. I'm going to be sitting right here with you. And I'm going to destroy your system, and you're going to be upset. And I'm just going to ask you to hang in there, right? Just hang in there with me. And it took a few weeks, and at the end of it, we all came out. It was collaborative. I wasn't just, but everybody came out with more time.
Yeah.
And so that was the key.
Yeah.
Like when I start to hear somebody say they're running out of bandwidth, they may be, or maybe we just need to take a look at the way they're doing what they're doing, and we can find some bandwidth, because they might be doing things that maybe there's a more efficient way of doing it.
Well, and I think that's where the conferences can be so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've never been very good at doing something that someone tells me to do. I think they call that oppositional disorder.
I don't know what it is, but I think we have a lot more in common than I thought.
But if somebody else is telling me things that worked for them, I'm going to learn from that. And when somebody tells me things that didn't work from them, I'm going to learn from that. And like I said, I'm reactionary, right? I'm going to look at what other people in the industry are doing, and I'm going to change things because of it, right? Yeah. And that's, the conferences have just been really huge for me. And I think about even like, when we have panels of salespeople that get up and talk about what they do, and they're selling literally twice what some of my best sales. I have awesome salespeople, and I'm not saying this to diss my salespeople at all.
No,
I have amazing people. Dan was trying to hit 300K this month. He was working so hard, and he was at like 290 something when I closed the computer for this area. So I don't know if he'll make it or not. But either way, I'm super proud of him. He's doing, he's amazing. But then you hear about these other salespeople who are like literally doing twice what he's doing, and I don't know how there could be enough time in the day, how there could be enough clicks on the keyboard, because I know how hard Dan works and how much he does to do, to have a $300,000 a month is just such a big deal for us. And like, I have salespeople that regularly sell $200,000. Other yards have salespeople will regularly sell 500,000. That just seems insane to me.
And what's crazy is in this industry, you could walk right up to them at a conference and go, "How do you do that?"
Yeah, and they'll tell you. Yeah,
they
will literally tell you,
yeah.
and they will celebrate with you
yeah.
when you do well. You know, it's so cool. We have two kind of newer salespeople at Pete's, and one of them said to me just earlier this week. He said, I've never had a sales job before where people were nice to me and where like we were a team, and it feels so good.
Because not everybody's trying to stab everybody in the back.
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, look at what a big day Mike had. Mike's doing it off to a great start. Or like, hey, check out Eric's brokered numbers, you know, and like they're all cheering each other on.
That's awesome.
And they're like, this doesn't happen, you know, but it does. It does happen in auto recycling, you know. Yeah. It does. And we try to give the salespeople opportunities to have peers outside of the company as well, because at the end of the day, they are competing with each other, you know, and we try to make that a really friendly, you know, positive competition. But I let any salesperson that wants to be in the robbery and water, we don't force it. There's some people that like the robbery and water groups, and there's some people that it's not for them, or the timing doesn't work for them. You know, some people are like bringing their kids to school at the time when the meetings are, but I have several people who just really thrive on those sales groups that they lead, because they do a 1 hour Zoom meeting once a week, and then they have a chat group where they're chatting each other every day, multiple times a day. And they're each other's cheerleaders. They're who they go to when they have questions. You know, you'll ask someone a question and not feel stupid when it's like some guy in New York, you know, versus like the guy who sits next to you that you don't want to look bad in front of, I think, you know. So that's been like a really great tool.
That's really cool.
And we try to send them to conferences too. Like we're bringing Dan and Tommy. They both work remotely for me, and so we'll meet up with them at the URG conference. You know, and I'll bring somebody else to ARA, I'm sure. And you know, we luckily the Automotive Recyclers of Michigan conferences are always like reasonably close. You know, you don't have to fly across the country. And this year it's at Premier, so it's like really close to us.
I was going to say, I wanted to mention, you know, state associations are so important, and Michigan has always been such a great state association. Yeah. So really strong.
Really strong. Yeah. And Jackie, who's running it now, is just doing an amazing job. I'm really fortunate to be from Michigan. And I remember when I first moved to Nebraska, and I'm not dissing Nebraska at all. This is 15-year-old information, but 15 years ago, when I moved from Michigan to Nebraska, and then I reached out to find out about like stormwater and things for, you know, in Nebraska, it was like a totally different, it was like crickets, you know. It was like at that time there was very little activity with the association. There's very few resources, and I was just used to the Barb Utter Arm Association where you know, people were so active, and we all went to the conferences and we were all helping each other, you know. And I think that there's probably a lot of state associations out there that are making a resurgence. You know, it seems like there's been a bit of a renaissance with some of the state associations, which is wonderful, because it is such a ARA is amazing. And like I remembered when Emil on the podcast, when Emil was talking about how ARA put together resources for each state during the pandemic. It was like I had a flashback, and I could remember like going to that site and clicking on it, you know. But there are so many like state level things that it's good to be involved in at a state level, and it's definitely helps with business and trade and everything too. You know, it's so neat. Well, cool. What do you do for fun? Concerts mostly. I love to. I know we're both Grateful Dead fans, and I don't think I've ever heard the story about your first Grateful Dead conference. My first conference. Concert. My first Dead show was in 1986, which I hate saying that, but I was about 20 years old, so yeah, everybody knows I'm old. But I was a mechanic, and I was working at a Firestone in Springfield, Virginia. Big, you know, I don't know, probably had 30 bays. I was a tire changer or something. Anyway, I was a mechanic at that time. I wasn't a tire changer. And I was working on somebody's car, and this guy, he comes walking out in the bay. It was back when nobody cared. You could walk out in the bay and talk to the mechanic. And so he's talking to me, and he was a tall, thin, black guy, and he was dressed, button-down shirt, had a tie on. And he says, he was just chatting with me. And he pulls out his pocket, and he's got this envelope. It's, you know, a Ticketron envelope with AT&T. And he goes, he was telling me he works at the AT&T office, and he says, you know, we get these tickets. And he opens the envelope, and he fans out 6 tickets, and it says Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and the Grateful Dead.
And he says, have you ever heard of these guys? And I'm trying to be cool, right? And I go, yeah, I've heard of them. And he goes, are they any good? I go, they're okay. And he goes, do you want to buy these tickets? And I said, how much? I'm a broke 20-year-old, right? He goes, I said, how much? And he says, $20. And I go, a piece? He goes, no. I go, here you go. I gave him $20, gave away 5 tickets to my friends. My first concert, I had 5 Miracle tickets, right? And one for
Amazing.
me. One for me. And then we went to the show, and that was the beginning. Like, that was the first time. And there were nosebleed seats. But again, 1986, nobody cared.
Yeah.
I literally remember grabbing my friends and go, come on. And we walked all the way down those nosebleed seats, and we were approaching the security to get onto the field. And I just remember looking over my shoulder and go, just act like we're supposed to be here. And we just walked right by security, held up a ticket, walked right in. We ended up from me to you. Like, we weaseled our way all the way up to the front, and I was standing there watching the whole thing, all 3 bands.
That's so cool.
It was great.
So cool.
And I was hooked. I mean, I've seen them. I saw them. I mean, I didn't see them dozens and dozens of times, but I'm from the DC area. That was the DC. That was an RFK show back when RFK Stadium was still active. Went back. They used to come and do 3 or 4 nights in a row in July. I got married in June of 94, and I'd seen them. I'd seen them in LA. I'd seen them several times. And one of my brothers Michelle and I got us tickets to all 3 nights. And so we got married in June. This was a show in July.
So cool.
And we all went together as friends. I'm already telling the second story here. So
love it.
We all went as friends, and we were all there. So it was me, a couple of my brothers, and spouses and things like that. Some friends of ours, Brad and Missy. So we're all tailgating. Time to go into the stadium. We all go walking into the stadium. We're kind of a group. And at some point, we're looking around. I'm looking at Brad. I'm like, where's Missy? Nobody knew where Missy was. We lost Missy. Anyway, fast forward a couple hours later, we're enjoying the concert. And Brad, have you seen Missy? He's like, no, I haven't seen Missy. No cell phones at that time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Missy's gone. The whole show, she's gone. And so at the end of the show, we're walking out and we're heading back to the car. And who pops up but Missy? And we're like, where have you been? She was happy as a clam. She's like, she goes, we were walking and I tripped and fell in the grass. And when I stood back up, you guys were gone. And when I stood up in the middle of another group that was walking, and they were like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. She said, I just hung out with them. I didn't know where you guys were. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, it's a very typical story.
It
right?
is. I have a few stories to piggyback off it, and one of them was I never got to see the Grateful Dead with Jerry, but I did go to a lot of Dead and Company shows. I chased them around for a while, and we were Andy and I were in the pit at Wrigley Field in Chicago for a Dead show, and he went to get a beer, and I was like, I have to protect the spot. This spot only a few rows back, And I just started swaying because I was trying to take up 2 people's worth of room, and so I'm just wagging my hips as far left and as far right as I can, and people are coming in, and we're getting close to showtime, and more and more people are crowding in, and I'm I'm dancing with no music, just trying to make my body as big as I can to hold space. And I start chatting with the people next to us, and they're like, honey, you don't have to lie to us. We don't believe that you have a husband. You can, and I'm like, he really is coming. Well, he could never find me. He tried for the first 3 songs or something to get from where he was to where I was, but I was so far in the front, and there were so many people. He gave up, and so I just made new friends. We both just made new friends until set break, but then I eventually drug him back over to those people and was like, look, he exists.
He exists. That's awesome.
But also the pretending you belong, that has gotten me pretty much everywhere in life,
Yep.
Back when I was drinking, I would often just make a giant Jack and Diet and take it with me wherever I wanted, to the grocery store, to the hardware store. I would take it in and everywhere, and I would just be drinking an alcoholic drink somewhere where you definitely were not supposed to. But as long as you just act like you belong and that it belongs and that everything's fine, nobody ever questioned me.
We did that in high school.
Yeah, and I remember a time I did an ARA because ARA had a conference and there was a NASCAR race. I feel like it was in Arizona.
Charlotte? No. You're talking an actual race.
It was an actual race.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had tickets, and like everybody in the bleachers, and I walked into the pits and they were checking everyone's pit pass, but I was just like, I looked ahead and I held myself in such a way that like I knew I was fighting, and I went right into the pits. And I met drivers. I was like, I'm like, I'm like signing there's like a line on the ground, the finish line on the ground. People were signing it. I'm signing the finish line. I'm doing all the things.
You're like Forrest Gump. You just end up in places, shaking hands with the president.
Yeah, basically. But it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah. I've never been a big like NASCAR person, but I had a lot of fun. When ARA has done NASCAR things, I've done it and I've really enjoyed it. I always enjoy it much more than I expect. And I think that's true with like any live sporting event is like, it's actually fun once you're like there and you're like seeing it,
I'm very experience driven.
Yeah.
Like there are things that I probably wouldn't like you. Hey, you want to? I'm probably not. But if I go and it's a good experience, then I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy things I wouldn't normally enjoy because it just ends up being a good experience. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's hocky or basketball, which I could care one way or the other about. But if it's fun, I've
been getting into F1. And I always thought that was like the most boring thing you could ever have, because like there's hardly any passing. Like what a boring race! Like it just same people around and around. What do I care? I also felt that way about NASCAR. Like a bunch of circles. What do I care? And then I started watching the Drive to Survive, and like you get all like the behind the scenes and the drama and everything. And I started getting really into it. And the next thing you know, I'm building a Lego F1 car, and I'm like watching all the races, and I want to go. And so
when
it's
you
really
come,
fun.
When you come to Hill Days in a few weeks, which I'm thrilled that you're coming, we have a great agenda planned, and one of the things we're doing is we're going on Wednesday evening, so we do our training for Hill Days all day Wednesday like we normally do, and we have a little event and a little networking thing. Wednesday evening we're going to an F1 arcade.
Yes,
so it's going to be
excited.
very fun. All these simulators, so it's a really nice upscale bar in DC. They'll have food and stuff, and then all along the perimeter of the room they have all these F1 arcades.
I'm stoked, and I'm like 10 times more excited about that than I would have been like a few months ago, because I'm just a fresh F1 fan.
That's awesome. So, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I really appreciate it. I think this has been fun. And is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. Tier my parts. Add me if you're a recycler.
Now you're pitching?
Now I'm plugging. Yes, now this is a plug for Pete's Auto Parts.
Right,
Tier me.
Look right there.
Yeah. So move me up on your partner list. If you can't see my parts, please get a hold of me, Amber at petesauto.net. We'll get my parts. I'm on Eden. I'm on CarPart. I'm on URGNet. I'm all the places. And I'd love to sell you some quality auto parts on time and as described.
I have never had anybody do that. That's amazing. I might just cut that for you and give it to you.
Give it
and
to
then
me.
you'll have your own little commercial.
There we go. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited. This has been a great conversation. We had plenty to talk about.
I'll make sure to update the members on how the dinner tastes and how you do tomorrow night. I'm just giving you shit. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, you're gonna be. You have to be the cheerleader so that this year in Atlanta.
Well, I'm honest, Vince. I'm not lying for you.
Good. Don't.
I'm just teasing. I'm not going to have to. I'm not going to have to.
So, all right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.